Good evening, and welcome to the Midnight Chronicler. As the clock strikes the late hour and the world grows quiet around you, it's time for tonight's journey into the darker corners of medieval life. Close your eyes, settle into comfort, and prepare for an immersive descent into the stone depths of history. Tonight, you will experience medieval imprisonment, not as an observer, but as a prisoner. You have been accused, arrested, and now face the reality of medieval justice. Your crime? That matters less than your ability to pay. So dim the lights, dear listener. Your sentence begins now. 1887. You are a merchant in London, moderately successful, comfortable enough to afford a house with real glass windows. But this morning, everything changes. The heavy pounding on your door comes before dawn. 3 men stand outside, 2 armed guards and a bailiff. The bailiff unfurls a parchment, his voice carrying through the cold morning air. You've been accused of debt default by a rival merchant. The sum he claims is enormous, more than you've ever possessed. But guilt and innocence are matters for later. Now there is only the arrest. The guards allow you 5 minutes to dress. Your hands shake as you pull on your woolen tunic, your best one, thinking somehow that appearing respectable might help. It won't. You reach for your purse, heavy with silver pennies. This at least will matter. The guard nods approvingly as you tuck it into your belt. You'll be needing that, he says, with something that might be sympathy or might be greed. Your wife appears in the doorway, her face pale in the pre-dawn darkness. You're allowed a brief embrace, a whispered promise that you'll send word that she should contact your brother, the one with connections. Then the guards are pulling you away, out into the street, where a small crowd has already gathered. Nothing attracts attention quite like an arrest. The walk through London takes an hour. Your feet, accustomed to soft leather shoes, stumble on the cobblestones. The guards set a steady pace, not cruel, but unrelenting. You pass familiar shops, the baker where you buy bread, the tavern where you conduct business. The proprietors watch from their doorways, some with pity, others with the satisfied look of those witnessing a rival's downfall. As you walk, the bailiff explains your options, or rather your lack of them. You will be held until trial. When will that be? Perhaps weeks, perhaps months. It depends on the court's schedule and, more importantly, on your ability to pay for expedited justice. The trial itself will be brief. Your accuser has witnesses, he says. Whether they're truthful witnesses or purchased ones, the bailiff neither knows nor cares. The Tower of London looms ahead, its white walls gleaming dully in the growing light. But you're not important enough for the tower proper. Instead, you're led to the Marshalsea, the debtor's prison south of the Thames. The building squats like a diseased toad among the ramshackle houses of Southwark. Its walls are stone, sweating with moisture even in the dry morning air. The smell hits you first. Human waste, rotting straw, and something else, something harder to identify. Despair, perhaps, if despair had a scent. The entrance is an archway, dark as a mouth. Above it, carved in stone weathered by decades of London rain, are the words Carcer Marescally, the prison of the Marshal. You pass through and the temperature drops immediately. The stones here have never known warmth. They've been cold since they were laid a century ago, and they'll be cold long after your bones have turned to dust. The courtyard beyond is small, perhaps 20 paces across. The walls rise on all sides, 4 stories of small barred windows. Faces peer down at you, pale, gaunt faces with eyes that have seen too much and hope for too little. Someone laughs, a sound like breaking glass. Someone else is sobbing, the sound muffled but constant, like rain on a roof. A man approaches, the keeper of the prison. He's well fed, his doublet clean and relatively new. His position is a profitable one, you realize. Every prisoner is a source of income. Fees for entry, fees for food, fees for bedding, fees for everything. He looks you over with the practiced eye of a merchant evaluating goods. Your clothes are decent, your purse appears heavy. You're not nobility, but you're not a pauper. A middle-income prisoner, worth maintaining, but not worth fawning over. "Welcome to the Marshalsea," he says, and his smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Let's discuss your accommodations."
The keeper's office is surprisingly comfortable. A fire crackles in the hearth, and the chairs have cushions. This is where the business of imprisonment is conducted. He opens a large ledger, its pages filled with columns of names and numbers. Your name is added to the bottom of the current page, the ink black and permanent against the yellowed parchment. "Now then," the keeper says, settling back in his chair, "let's discuss your options. The Marshalsea offers several levels of accommodation, suited to various financial situations." He begins with the master's side. Private rooms, real beds, access to the courtyard during daylight hours, the ability to have food brought in from outside. The cost is astronomical. 2 shillings a week, more than most craftsmen earn in a month. You could afford it, perhaps, for a few weeks, but if your trial drags on... Then there's the common side. Shared rooms with 3 or 4 other prisoners of similar status, straw mattresses that are changed monthly, basic food provided, access to the courtyard twice a week, 8 pence a week. More manageable, but still a steady drain on your resources. Finally, mentioned almost as an afterthought, is the hole. The keeper doesn't call it that, of course. He refers to it as basic accommodation for those of limited means. No fee, or rather, the fee is your suffering. But surely, he says, a man of your standing wouldn't consider such an option. You choose the common side, a compromise between comfort and economy. The keeper nods approvingly and calls for a guard. But first, there are entrance fees to be paid. 1 shilling for the keeper, 6 pence for the head turnkey, 4 pence for the under turnkey, 2 pence for the chamberlain. Your purse is noticeably lighter as you follow the guard deeper into the prison. The processing is methodical and dehumanizing. First, your belongings are catalogued. Your belt, with its silver buckle, is taken for safekeeping. Your knife, a small eating blade you've carried for years, is confiscated. Your boots, good leather with solid soles, are examined carefully. The guards suggest you might want to trade them for something simpler. Good boots have a tendency to walk away on other men's feet while you sleep. You refuse, for now. Next comes the search for hidden valuables. You're made to strip completely, your clothes shaken out and examined. The guards are professional about it. They've done this countless times. They find the 3 silver pennies you'd sewn into your ham last year, a precaution against cut purses that now works against you. These, too, are taken, noted in another ledger. You'll get them back upon release, the guard assures you, minus a handling fee, of course. Naked and shivering, you're given your prison clothes. They're not uniforms, exactly, just cast-off garments donated by the charitable or taken from prisoners who no longer need them. The tunic is rough wool, stained with things you don't want to identify. It's too large, hanging off your merchant's soft frame like a sack. The breezes are too short, ending above your ankles. You're allowed to keep your own hose and shoes. Small mercies. The guard leads you through a series of corridors, each darker and damper than the last. The walls are stone, sweating constantly with Thames moisture. Your breath mists in the cold air. Somewhere, water drips steadily, a sound that you'll hear every moment of your imprisonment, a liquid clock marking time in this place where time means nothing. You pass through the kitchen, where tomorrow's food is being prepared. Large cauldrons bubble over inadequate fires. The smell is indescribable. Cabbage, certainly. Turnips, probably. Meat, possibly, though what kind of meat is best left unquestioned. A prisoner stirs one of the pots with a paddle the size of an oar. He's missing 3 fingers on his stirring hand. Kitchen duty is dangerous when you're weak from hunger. The common hall comes next, where those who can afford day privileges gather. It's a large room, perhaps 40 feet long, with benches along the walls and a few precious spots near the single fireplace. The fire is small, mean, giving more smoke than heat. Men cluster around it anyway, holding out hands that will never quite get warm. They look up as you pass, evaluating, calculating. Fresh meat, their eyes say. Someone to learn the rules from, or to teach the rules to, depending on their nature. Conversations pause as you walk by. You catch fragments, talk of trials delayed, of lawyers who promise much and deliver little, of families on the outside struggling to pay prison fees. One man laughs, describing how he's been here 3 years for a debt of £5 and has paid £20 in fees so far. The debt remains, the imprisonment continues, the keeper grows richer. Finally, you arrive at your cell. The door is oak, thick and bound with iron. There's a small barred window at head height and a slot at the bottom for food and waste buckets. The guard produces a massive key, the metal grinding in the lock with a sound like breaking bones. The door opens on hinges that scream for oil they'll never receive. The room beyond is perhaps 12 feet by 10 feet. There are 4 straw mattresses on the floor, each with a threadbare blanket. 3 are occupied. Your cellmates look up with expressions of mild interest. The guard shoves you forward, and the door slams shut. The key turns again, that bone-breaking sound, and footsteps fade away. You stand there, just inside the door, unsure what to do. The silence stretches until one of your cellmates, an older man with gray stubble and kind eyes, speaks. First time? You nod. It shows. Come, take that mattress there furthest from the door. It's the worst spot for drafts, but the best for keeping your possessions. I'm William, by the way. Former cloth merchant. Been here 8 months.
William becomes your guide to this strange new world. As your eyes adjust to the dim light filtering through the single barred window, he introduces your other cellmates. Thomas is a young man, perhaps 20, imprisoned for striking a noble's servant. His trial is next month. He's been waiting 6 months for it. The third man, Robert, doesn't speak. He sits in the corner, rocking slightly, fingers endlessly counting invisible coins. He's been here 2 years, William explains quietly. His family stopped paying fees 6 months ago. The keeper lets him stay because moving him would be effort, and he causes no trouble. Don't expect conversation. He's gone inside himself. It happens to some. The cell itself becomes more detailed as your eyes adapt. The walls are stone, of course, sweating with moisture that never quite dries. Green mold grows in the corners, spreading like a map of unknown continents. The floor is stone too, covered with a thin layer of straw that hasn't been changed in weeks. It smells of human bodies, of fear sweat and resignation. There's a bucket in the corner for waste. William explains the routine. It's emptied once a day, in the morning, if the guards remember. If they don't, or if you can't pay the penny fee for emptying, you live with it. The smell is omnipresent, a thick, cloying presence that coats the back of your throat. Your mattress, when you examine it, is a sack of rough cloth filled with straw. Old straw, compressed and broken, providing little cushion against the stone floor. Things move in it, fleas certainly, lice probably, and other creatures you'd rather not identify. The blanket is wool, which would be warming, except it's so threadbare you can see through it in places. It smells of its previous owner, or owners, layers of human scent built up over years. William shows you where to store your possessions, a small niche in the wall that might have once held a religious statue. Keep everything here, he advises. Sleep with your shoes on and your purse under your body. Thomas is honest, and Robert is beyond caring, but others come and go, and sometimes the guards do inspections, looking for contraband. Things go missing during inspections. The daily routine, William explains, is simple in its monotony. Wake at dawn, though determining dawn in this perpetual twilight is more guess than certainty. The guards make their rounds, collecting the waste buckets from those who can pay. Breakfast arrives an hour later, a piece of bread, hard as wood, and small beer that's more water than alcohol. But it's safe to drink, unlike the water, which comes from a well that's far too close to the waste pits. Those with day privileges leave for the common areas. The rest remain, passing time as best they can. Some have work, sewing shirts for a penny a dozen, copying documents for those who can still afford legal representation, making simple crafts that relatives might sell outside. The work is poorly paid, but it passes time and earns a few pennies for extras. William has a small enterprise going. He writes letters for illiterate prisoners. A penny for a simple message home, 2 for anything requiring persuasive language. He shows you his writing materials, a few precious sheets of paper, carefully guarded, a small pot of ink that he makes himself from soot and vinegar, and a quill that he repairs endlessly, binding the split ends with thread. Would you like to send word to your wife? He offers. You accept gratefully, dictating a message that tries to sound hopeful while conveying the urgency of your situation. William writes in a careful hand, making your desperate circumstances sound merely uncomfortable, your fear sound like minor concern. It's a skill, he explains, learned over months. Too much despair, and families give up. Too little, they don't act quickly enough. Lunch arrives as you're finishing the letter. The same bread, this time with a bowl of pottage. You examine it carefully in the dim light. Cabbage, certainly, floating in a thin broth that might have once seen meat. Small objects that could be barley or could be weevils. You eat it anyway. Hunger is a powerful seasoning, and you need strength. Thomas tells his story as you eat. A minor altercation that escalated, a shove that sent a man into a wall, and the man happened to be wearing livery. Now, Thomas faces possible branding, maybe ear cropping, depending on the judge's mood and his ability to pay the right people. His family saves every penny for bribes, he says, but it might not be enough. The afternoon stretches endlessly. This, William says, is the true punishment. Not the cold, or the hunger, or the smell, but the time. Hours that feel like days. Days that feel like a week. Nothing to do but think. And thinking leads nowhere good. Some men pray endlessly, wearing their knees raw on the stone. Others pace, 3 steps one way, 3 steps back, wearing grooves in the floor. Some, yet others, like Robert, simply stop, withdrawing into themselves until they're present only in body. You try to read the walls for distraction. Previous prisoners have left their marks, initials carved into stone with smuggled tools, dates marking interminable stays, occasional messages. John Carpenter, 3 months for debt, 1381. God save us from this place. Margaret, I die loving you. Each one a story of desperation, carved letter by painful letter into uncaring stone.
Days develop a rhythm, monotonous as a heartbeat. You awake to the sound of keys in locks, the morning guard doing his rounds. Your back aches from the thin mattress and cold floor. Your first conscious breath brings the full assault of the cell's smell, human waste, unwashed bodies, rotting straw, and that underlying scent of despair that seems to seep from the very stones. The morning ritual begins. You've learned to sleep fully clothed, shoes and all. Others have had possessions stolen in the night by cellmates or guards. Your purse, steadily lightening, stays pressed against your stomach, held in place by your belt. You check it immediately upon waking. Still there, a few coins lighter than when you started, but enough to keep you on the common side for another week, perhaps 2 if you're careful. The waste bucket must be dealt with first. The stench is overwhelming after a night's use by 4 men. Thomas, the youngest, and therefore lowest in the cell's hierarchy, carries it to the door. The guard charges a penny for emptying. You take turns paying, though Robert hasn't contributed in months. The guard empties it into a larger barrel, which will eventually make its way to the Thames. The bucket is returned, unrinsed. It will never be truly clean again. Washing is a luxury you can barely afford. Once a week, for 2 pence, you can get a bucket of water. Not clean water, nothing here is truly clean, but water nonetheless. You share it among your cellmates, each taking turns to splash face and hands. Soap is a fantasy. You make do with scraping dirt away with your fingernails, which grow long and yellowed in the darkness. Your beard grows wild. Razors are forbidden, potential weapons. For 6 pence, the prison barber will trim it with scissors, but 6 pence is 3 days' food. You let it grow, feeling less like yourself each day as your merchant's neat appearance dissolves into something wilder, more desperate. Breakfast arrives with a sullen guard who slides wooden bowls through the door slot. The bread is the same each day, a small loaf, heavy as stone, made from the cheapest flour mixed with sawdust and chalk to add bulk. You've learned to soak it in the small beer to soften it, otherwise it's like chewing rocks. Men have broken teeth on prison bread, and a broken tooth here means infection, and infection means death. The small beer is your primary liquid, 3 pints a day if you're on common rations. It's weak, barely alcoholic, but it's boiled during brewing, making it safer than water. You've seen what happens to those who drink the water. The flux takes them, leaving them weaker and more miserable than before if it doesn't kill them outright. After breakfast, the lucky few with day privileges leave for the common rooms. You remain. You haven't paid for that luxury. The cell becomes your entire world from sunrise to sunset. 12 feet by 10 feet. 120 square feet. You know every stone in the walls, every board in the door, every strand of straw in your mattress. You pass time by talking when there's anything to say. William tells stories of his merchant days, deals made and lost, journeys to Flanders for cloth, the wife who waits for him if she hasn't already remarried. Thomas practices his defense speech, the same words over and over until they lose all meaning, and Robert rocks in his corner, occasionally mumbling numbers, 17, 43, 91. No one knows what they mean. The morning stretches into afternoon with glacial slowness. You've developed a way to track time by the movement of the single shaft of light from your window. It starts in the eastern corner, creeps across the floor like a living thing, and disappears in the west as evening comes. On sunny days, the light is almost warm, and you take turns sitting in it, pretending for a moment that you're elsewhere. Dinner arrives at what might be 3 o'clock, though time is meaningless here. Another bowl of pottage, this one with recognizable turnips and what optimists might call meat. It's likely horse, possibly dog. The prison buys the cheapest meat available, often from knackers who deal in animals that died of disease. You don't think about it. You can't afford to. You need the sustenance. You've learned to eat slowly, making the meal last. It's an event, a break in the monotony. You examine each piece of vegetable, each strand of possible meat. You've become an expert in prison pottage, able to identify ingredients by texture and taste. Today's has wild garlic, probably picked from the prison yard. It's a good day when there's garlic. It masks other flavors best left unidentified. The evening routine begins as dark falls. Those with candles light them, precious tallow candles that cost a penny each and burn for perhaps 2 hours. You have 3, saved for emergencies or when the darkness becomes too oppressive. Most nights you sit in darkness, talking or listening to the sounds of the prison. And such sounds there are. Crying is constant, new prisoners sobbing for their lost freedom, old prisoners weeping for families they may never see again. Prayers rise from every cell, a babble of devotion in Latin, English, French. Some prisoners have gone mad, and their laughter or screaming echoes off the stone walls, distorting until it sounds like demons or angels, depending on your state of mind. There's singing sometimes. On good nights, when someone has received good news or smuggled in wine, songs rise from the cells, ballads of love and loss, drinking songs from better times, occasionally a hymn that brings momentary comfort. On bad nights, there are fights, the sound of fists on flesh, bodies hitting stone, guards arriving with clubs to restore order. You've learned the prison's acoustic map. The woman in the cell above yours coughs constantly. Consumption, probably. The man 2 cells down prays in Hebrew every evening. A Jewish merchant caught in a Christian legal system that barely recognizes his humanity. Somewhere distant, perhaps in the hole, someone screams the same word over and over. Innocent, 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 until the word loses meaning and becomes just another sound in the night symphony.
After 2 weeks, you understand that prison is primarily a business. Everything has a price, and the keeper is a merchant dealing in misery. Your initial funds are depleting at an alarming rate. The 8 pence weekly for basic accommodation is just the beginning. Every aspect of survival costs money. Want a candle to pierce the perpetual gloom? A penny. Need your waste bucket emptied daily instead of whenever the guards remember? A penny.
Fresh straw for your mattress, 2 pence. A letter sent to the outside, 3 pence, including the guard's delivery fee. The costs accumulate like water dripping through your fingers. William teaches you the economy of survival. Never pay the asking price, he advises. Everything is negotiable. The guards want your money, but they want it over time. A dead prisoner pays no fees. You learn to barter. Your good wool cloak, the one your wife insisted you wear, becomes currency. You trade it to a guard for a month of guaranteed daily bucket emptying and 2 extra loaves a week. Your silver buttons buy you a thicker blanket as October's chill seeps through the stones. Your wedding ring, the last thing you wanted to sell, remains on your finger for now, but you know its day will come. The prison has its own internal economy, too. Prisoners with skills sell them to others. A former clerk writes legal documents for those attempting to manage their cases from inside. A baker who knows the kitchen guards gets extra bread to sell. A woman in the female ward washes clothes for a penny per garment. Everyone is both consumer and merchant in this economy of desperation. Some prisoners receive regular support from the outside. Their families send money, food, clothing, news. These fortunate few live almost comfortably, paying for private cells, buying wine and proper food from the outside, maintaining some semblance of their former dignity. They're resented and courted in equal measure, resented for their privilege, courted for their resources. Others, like Robert, have been abandoned. Their families either cannot or will not pay any more. These prisoners exist on charity, if it comes, or slowly waste away. The keeper tolerates them as long as they cause no trouble. When they die, their bodies are stripped of anything valuable and dumped in the pauper's pit behind Crossbones' graveyard. You've started working to earn money within the prison. Your literacy and numeracy, skills from your merchant days, are valuable here. You help illiterate prisoners understand their legal documents for a penny per page. You keep accounts for the prisoner who runs an illegal dice game in the common room, taking a small percentage of the pot. You even help the keeper's assistant balance his books, earning a few pence and, more valuable, his marginal favor. But the money goes out faster than it comes in. Your wife sends what she can, but your arrest has damaged your business. Your creditors circle like vultures, demanding payment. Your rival, the one who had you arrested, has mysteriously acquired some of your regular customers. Your family's savings shrink week by week, eaten away by prison fees and legal costs. The lawyer your brother hired visits, a thin man with ink-stained fingers and calculating eyes. He speaks of possibilities, strategies, the potential for a favorable outcome. But each possibility requires money. Bribes for court clerks to expedite your trial, fees for witnesses who might testify to your character, gifts for the judge's secretary who might whisper in his master's ear. Justice, you're learning, is not blind. She simply has her hand out. The total sum needed is staggering. More than your remaining assets, more than your family can raise without selling everything. The lawyer suggests borrowing from moneylenders, but you know that path. It leads to debts that can never be repaid, to a different kind of prison, that follows you even after release. Some prisoners turn to desperate measures. They inform on others for small rewards. They steal from their cellmates. They sell themselves in various ways to those with particular tastes and spare coins. The prison corrupts everyone it touches, turning honest men into survivors, survivors into predators, and predators into monsters. You're approached one evening by a guard with a proposition. Another prisoner, a wealthy merchant, needs someone to take a beating for him. He's offended someone powerful, and retribution is coming. But if you take his place, claim to be him in the darkness when they come, he'll pay your fees for 2 months. You consider it, actually consider it, before declining. But the fact that you considered it at all shows how far you have already fallen.
November arrives with bitter cold that turns the prison into an ice house. The stones, always cold, now burn with it. Frost forms on the inside walls each morning, a delicate crystalline beauty that would be appreciated anywhere else. Here it's another torment. Your breath clouds constantly. Your fingers go numb, making even simple tasks difficult. The cold brings death. The old woman in the cell above, the one with consumption, stops coughing one night. The silence is somehow worse than the sound it had been. By morning, her body is carried out, wrapped in the thin blanket she died in. Within hours, new prisoners are moved into her cell. The prison doesn't mourn, it just continues. Illness spreads quickly in these close quarters. Jail fever, what later centuries will call typhus, burns through the cells. It starts with headaches, then fever, then delirium. The lucky ones die quickly. The unlucky linger for weeks, their minds gone, their bodies wasting. There's no treatment, no medicine. The prison surgeon, when he bothers to come, bleeds the sick, weakening them further. More often, he simply declares them dying and leaves. You watch Thomas sicken with something, not the fever, but a wasting disease that turns his food into liquid and leaves him weaker each day. The flux, they call it, though it has many names and many causes. Bad water, bad food, bad air, bad luck. He spends his days curled on his mattress, groaning softly, soiling himself when he can't reach the bucket in time. The smell in your cell, already terrible, becomes unbearable. But you can't abandon him. Where would you go? You and William take turns caring for him, cleaning him as best you can with your precious water ration, sharing your bread when he can stomach it. It's futile, you know. Without proper food, clean water, and medicine, he won't recover. But the alternative is to let him die alone, and you're not that far gone yet. Madness is as common as illness. The human mind isn't meant for this, the confinement, the hopelessness, the endless repetition of miserable days. Men who arrived sane leave broken, if they leave at all. You see it happening incrementally, like watching erosion. First, they stop washing, stop caring about the lice and filth. Then they stop eating, pushing away even the meager food that might keep them alive. They begin talking to themselves or to people who aren't there. They develop obsessions, counting stones, picking at their skin until it bleeds, repeating phrases endlessly. Finally, they retreat entirely into their minds, becoming empty shells that breathe and occasionally scream. Robert, your silent cellmate, has moments of lucidity that are almost worse than his usual vacancy. He grabs my arm one evening, his eyes suddenly focused, and whispers, "I had a daughter. She had brown hair. Do you think she remembers me?" Before you can answer, he's gone again, back to counting his invisible coins. You feel your own mind fraying at the edges. You catch yourself talking to the walls, having conversations with your wife who isn't there, seeing movement in shadows that don't exist. Sleep brings no relief. Your dreams are of endless stone corridors, of doors that won't open, of trials that never come. You wake exhausted, unsure for a moment where reality ends and nightmare begins. To combat the madness, you develop rituals. Every morning, you recite your family members' names, keeping their memories sharp. You mentally walk through your house, room by room, remembering every detail. You solve mathematical problems in your head, keeping your merchant's mind active. You compose letters you'll never send, maintaining the pretense of normal communication. William has his own methods. He's writing a book in his head, he says, about his travels and trades. Each day, he adds a chapter, reciting it quietly to himself, editing and refining. It might never be written down, but it keeps him sane. The mind needs purpose, or it devours itself. Violence, when it comes, is sudden and brutal. Two prisoners in the common room fight over a crust of bread. One produces a sharpened spoon, contraband that could get him flogged. He drives it into the other's eye. The screaming brings guards, but slowly, reluctantly. They've seen it all before. The wounded man is dragged away, dripping blood and eye fluid. He's never seen again. The attacker is taken to the hole, where he'll stay until he dies or goes completely mad, whichever comes first. You learn to navigate the violence like a sailor navigating reefs. Keep your head down, don't make eye contact, never show weakness, but never appear strong enough to be a threat. Share what you must to avoid being seen as selfish, but keep enough to survive. It's exhausting, this constant calculation of danger and opportunity.
December brings news that your trial is finally scheduled. January, the clerk says, barring delays, you have been here 3 months, and the date feels both impossibly far and terrifyingly close. Your wife visits for the first time, having finally saved enough for the visitor's fee. You meet in the common room, under the watch of guards. She's thinner, older, wearing a dress you don't recognize. She's sold the good ones, she admits, to pay for your lawyer. She brings bread from home, still warm, and you weep at the taste of it. Real bread, made with love instead of contempt, flavored with freedom instead of despair. The visit is brief, an hour that passes in heartbeats. She tells you of the world outside. Your son has started apprenticing with another merchant. Your daughter helps with the household. Your business is gone, sold to cover debts. Your rival has been spreading rumors that you're guilty, that you've hidden money somewhere. Some believe him. Old friends cross the street to avoid your wife. But there's hope, she says. The lawyer has found discrepancies in your rival's claims, witnesses who might testify that you were elsewhere when certain transactions allegedly occurred. It's thin, but it's something. You cling to this hope like a drowning man to driftwood. After she leaves, the cell seems darker than ever. You have a trial date now, a possible end to this nightmare, but also a date when everything could get worse. Guilty verdicts for debt and fraud don't mean simple imprisonment. They mean branding, maybe ear cropping, definitely the pillory, and then more prison because the debt would remain. Thomas dies 2 days before Christmas. It's almost merciful by the end. He's delirious, calling for his mother, seeing angels in the corners of the cell. You and William sit with him through his last night, offering what comfort you can. When he finally stops breathing, it feels like a release. The guards come for the body at dawn. They strip it efficiently, taking his clothes, his shoes, the few coins hidden in his mattress. You protest that these should go to his family. The guard laughs. "Processing fee," he says. Thomas is wrapped in a rough cloth and carried away. By evening, a new prisoner has taken his place, a young man who looks terrified and too clean. The cycle continues. Christmas in prison is marked only by slightly better food. The churches donate extra bread and meat for the holiday. Some prisoners sing carols, their voices echoing strangely off the stone. Others weep openly for Christmases past, for families celebrating without them. You sit in silence, trying not to think about your children opening whatever meager presents your wife managed to provide. As January approaches, you prepare for trial. William helps you practice your defense, though you both know it matters less than the bribes your lawyer has managed to place. You trim your beard as best you can with borrowed scissors, trying to look respectable. Your wife sends your best remaining clothes, preserved for this moment. They hang loose on your prison-thinned frame. The night before trial, you can't sleep. Every possible outcome plays through your mind. Acquittal seems impossible. Your rival has spent too much ensuring you're guilty. But perhaps a lesser sentence, perhaps time served, perhaps mercy from a judge who sees you've suffered enough. Or perhaps none of these things. Perhaps tomorrow brings the beginning of an even worse nightmare. Morning comes whether you're ready or not. The guards arrive early, chains in hand. You're shackled to 5 other prisoners also facing trial, a coffle of the desperate linked by iron. The walk to court is your first time outside the prison in months. The winter air, as cold as it is, tastes like paradise. The sun, weak and filtered through London's smoke, seems impossibly bright. You stumble, your eyes watering, overwhelmed by space and light and the absence of walls. The courthouse is packed with spectators. Trials are entertainment for those with nothing better to do. You search the crowd for your wife's face, finding it eventually, pale and drawn, but attempting an encouraging smile. Your rival is there too, prosperous-looking, confident. He's already won, really. Even if you're acquitted, you're ruined. He's taken your business, your reputation, your life. The trial is brief as promised. Your rival presents his evidence. Documents with your supposed signature, witnesses who swear they saw you make promises you never made. Your lawyer counters with technicalities, inconsistencies, character witnesses who speak of your previous honesty. The judge looks bored, having heard variations of this story countless times. The verdict comes quickly. Guilty of debt, not guilty of intentional fraud. A mixed victory that feels like defeat. The sentence is time served plus 6 more months, conditional on paying the original debt plus interest plus court costs. The sum is impossible. More than you've ever had. More than you could raise if you sold your soul. Back to prison you go, but now as a convicted debtor rather than an accused one. It's a small distinction that changes nothing. The same cell, the same straw, the same bucket, the same slowly crushing despair. Your wife visits again to discuss options. Bankruptcy, which would free you but destroy any chance of recovering your merchant status. Fleeing to the continent, if you ever get out. Appealing to your rival's mercy, though you both know none exists. She cries, and you can't comfort her through the bars that separate you. You're already a ghost to each other, a memory of better times that grows fainter each day. Some prisoners do get released. Their debts are paid, their sentences served, their innocence somehow proven. They leave amid celebration from other prisoners, promises to remember those left behind, to send help if they can. Most are never heard from again. Freedom, once tasted, makes looking back unbearable. Others leave in different ways. Suicide is common enough that the guards check for ropes and sharp objects, though never thoroughly. A man in the next cell hangs himself with strips torn from his blanket, braided together over weeks. Another drinks lye, stolen from the laundry. They're buried in unhallowed ground, but at least they're buried. At least they're free. You consider it yourself on the darkest nights. William talks you out of it with practical arguments rather than moral ones. He says, your family still needs you. Even in here, you're still a husband, still a father. Dead, you're just another tragedy they have to bear. So, you endure. Another month passes, then another. You stop counting days, because days don't matter when they all blur together. You exist in a perpetual present tense of cold and hunger and smell and stone. You're no longer becoming a prisoner. You are one, completely and utterly. The merchant you were feels like someone you once knew, a character from a story you heard long ago.
And so your sentence continues, stretching into an indefinite future. Perhaps your wife will find the money through miracle or sacrifice. Perhaps your rival will relent, his vengeance satisfied. Perhaps a change in law or monarch will bring general amnesty. Perhaps you'll die here, another ghost in these stones that have seen so much suffering. The prison doesn't care. It continues its ancient rhythm, new prisoners arriving, old ones leaving through release or death. The endless cycle of fees and sickness and madness and occasional precious hope. The walls absorb more tears, more prayers, more screams. The stones grow colder with each passing winter. You've become part of the machine now, another component in the great engine of medieval justice. Your individual story matters less than the collective weight of all the stories these walls contain. You're a debtor, a prisoner, a number in a ledger, a fee to be collected, a body to be housed until it's not. But you're still human somehow. You still dream. You still remember sunlight and your daughter's laugh and the taste of good ale in a warm tavern. These memories are treasures now, more valuable than any coins. You guard them carefully, visiting them in the dark hours when the prison seems ready to swallow you whole. Tomorrow will bring more of the same. Bread hard as stone, pottage that might be food, the bucket, the smell, the cold, the slowly passing hours marked by the movement of light across stone, the sounds of human suffering echoing off uncaring walls, the gradual erosion of everything you thought you were. But tonight, as the midnight chronicler's tale draws to a close, you can rest. Your story has been told, preserved in words, if not in stone. You existed. You endured.
You survived another day in this place where days feel like years and years feel like centuries. The medieval prison stands ready for the next soul, the next story, the next chronicle of suffering and survival. Its hunger is endless, its patience infinite. It waits as it has always waited, fed by the steady stream of human misery that keeps its keys turning and its cells full. And somewhere in London, another merchant makes an enemy. Another accusation is prepared. Another arrest is planned. The cycle continues, as it always has, as it always will, until these stones finally crumble and release their burden of remembered pain. But that's a story for another midnight. For now, dear listener, let the stone walls fade. Let the cold recede. Let the story settle into silence. You're free to go. The Midnight Chronicler bids you good night, and gentler dreams than those we've shared.